As a religion, Islam fundamentally emphasizes companionship, tenderness, and tolerance. The most majority of Muslims know that Islam means a blessing for the universe, or Rahmatan Lil Alamin. The implementation of peaceful Islam is nurtured as wider as possible for many Muslims across the globe. The concept of Rahmatan Lil Alamin, or the blessing for the universe, is prior to be fostered in various Muslim majority countries. The ulama and umaro continuously promote Islamic ideas and practices which contain the value of tolerance, peace, coexist with the principle of human rights hand in hand with local culture for every dawah, and compatible with democracy. Consistent in disseminating and practicing tender and charming Islam plays key role in maintaining Islam as a religion of peace. To provide a dynamic and fruitful discussion, INFID, as the initiator, collaborate with Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, inviting various Islamic organizations in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia to join together. The discussion aims to share experiences and efforts that have made by the four countries in strengthening the understanding and practice of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. By having this international seminar, it is expected that the idea of tolerant and peaceful Islam in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia would become notable and influential image for global society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the international seminar, Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all participants from around the world. We do hope everyone in good health and protected from the COVID-19 pandemic. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Ladies and gentlemen, in this very special occasion, please allow me to extend our warmest greeting to all of distinguished speakers and participants. Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Ma'ruf Amin. Excellency, Chairperson of the INFID Executive Board, Mrs. Dian Kartikasari. Excellency, Mr. Yakut Khalil Thomas, the Minister of Religious Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Excellency, Mr. Mohsin Shihab, Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia on Interinstitutional Relations. Excellency, Mr. Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, Chairperson of the Nahdlatul Ulama Executive Board. Excellency, Professor Dr. Shafiq Al-Mubni, MA, Chairperson of the Central Executive Board of Muhammadiyah. The Ambassador of Pakistan in Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Muhammad Hassan. Ambassador of Indonesia for Pakistan, His Excellency Mr. Adam M. Tudio. Excellency journalists and colleagues in media, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. This event also attending by colleagues from ministries, embassies, CEOs, media, and general participants from various community institutions around the world. Welcome to the first day of online international seminar entitled Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. This 3 days online international seminar is initiated by International NGO Forum on Indonesian Development, or INFID, in partnership with Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah from Indonesia. This international seminar involves various Islamic organizations, and it is supported by the Indonesian embassies in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia. The seminar is being relayed on Zoom Facebook INFID, YouTube INFID TV, and also our media partners, YouTube channel NU Online, ibtimes.id, arrohim.id, and islamic.co. I am Taufan Maulana. I will be your host for today. All sessions in this seminar will be delivered in English and will be interpreted in Bahasa, Arabic, and sign language. Ladies and gentlemen, please be noted that we have provided the interpretation feature on Zoom. You may click the button on your screen located at the bottom right side with a globe symbol titled Interpretation, and then choose the language you wish to translate. Thank you for attending the online international seminar, Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. This seminar is a safe space for everyone. All participants are prohibited to make discriminative comments. The seminar will be interpreted in Bahasa, Arab, and sign language. The seminar is using webinar mode. Every participant will be mute. Use the Q&A section at the bottom right of the screen to type the question. The question will be answered in question and answer session. Make sure to use the Zoom application and have installed the update version. Seminar will be held in English. Click the globe symbol at the right bottom of your screen, and then click the language that you would like to hear. Excellencies, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, it is our honor to invite you to the digital podium to deliver the keynote speech. Please give word of applause for Mr. Ma'ruf Amin, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang saya hormati Menteri Agama Republik Indonesia, Menteri Luar Negeri Republik Indonesia, Ketua Umum Majelis Ulama Indonesia, Ketua Umum PBNU, Ketua Umum PP Muhammadiyah, Ketua Pengurus INFID, para Duta Besar Indonesia untuk Pakistan, Tunisia, dan Malaysia, Duta Besar Pakistan, Duta Besar Malaysia, dan Duta Besar Tunisia untuk Indonesia, para narasumber dan peserta dari 4 negara, Malaysia, Pakistan, dan Tunisia, dan dari negara-negara Muslim lainnya yang berbahagia. Pertama-tama, marilah kita panjatkan puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Tuhan yang Maha Esa, karena atas limpahan, nikmat, dan karunia-Nya kita dapat bertemu pada acara Seminar Internasional hari ini. Seminar internasional ini mengangkat tajuk Membangun Kerjasama Internasional untuk menguatkan komitmen dan praktik Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin di dunia. Tajuk ini saya pandang strategis dan tepat waktu karena kerjasama dunia Islam mutlak diperlukan, mengingat tantangan yang dihadapi untuk penguatan komitmen dan praktiknya tidak ringan. Hadirin yang saya hormati, Islam telah membangun paradigma yang sangat monumental, abadi, dan universal, dan menghadirkan konsep Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin yang ramah terhadap semua ciptaan Tuhan, atau sering disebut dengan mercy to all creation. Islam adalah agama dengan jumlah penganut terbanyak kedua di dunia, sekaligus agama yang jumlah pemeluknya tumbuh paling pesat di dunia. Umat Muslim diperkirakan akan menjadi penganut agama terbanyak di dunia pada akhir abad ini. Dan saat ini Indonesia adalah rumah bagi populasi Muslim terbesar di dunia. Sayangnya masih banyak pihak yang justru mengidentikan Islam dengan ekstremisme dan kekerasan. Citra Islam yang mulia telah dirampas oleh segelintir orang yang mengatasnamakan Islam untuk membenarkan kekerasan yang dilakukannya. Masalahnya suara mereka lebih nyaring di dunia internasional. Mereka mendapatkan sorotan dan perhatian. Diperparah dengan sebaran berita di berbagai platform media. Akibatnya terjadi Islamofobia yang saat ini marak di berbagai belahan dunia. Tak jarang umat Islam mendapatkan perlakuan diskriminatif dan rasialis akibat Islamofobia. Islamofobia ini muncul akibat kesalahpahaman terhadap Islam serta generalisasi terhadap perbuatan sekelompok kecil orang yang mengatasnamakan Islam, padahal sesungguhnya mereka itu bukan representasi umat Islam dan bukan cerminan dari ajaran Islam. Maka kita sebagai umat Islam bersama-sama memikul pekerjaan besar untuk menjadi cerminan Islam yang moderat, bersahabat, dan toleran. Tidak hanya itu, kita juga harus menjadi umat Islam yang maju dan berdaya. Hadirin yang berbahagia, saya bersyukur karena Indonesia telah diakui keberhasilannya dalam mengelola perbedaan. Indonesia telah diminta berbagai pengalaman tentang toleransi antar umat beragama yang menjadi faktor terciptanya perdamaian dan stabilitas dalam kehidupan masyarakat yang sangat beragam latar belakangnya. Belum lama ini saya didatangi utusan dari Majelis Hukamaul Muslimin yang berpusat di Abu Dhabi, yang merupakan kumpulan cendekiawan Muslim di seluruh dunia yang diketuai oleh Syekhul Azhar Mesir. Mereka datang ke Indonesia bukan untuk memberikan ajaran atau tuntunan tentang bagaimana Islam yang Rahmatan Lil Alamin itu, tapi justru mereka datang untuk belajar tentang Islam yang toleran yang sudah diakui di Indonesia. Bahkan mereka mengatakan bahwa bukan saatnya lagi sekarang kitab-kitab bahasa Arab diterjemahkan ke dalam bahasa Indonesia, tapi justru sebaliknya sekarang ini adalah buku-buku Indonesia yang memuat tentang bagaimana toleransi, kerukunan itu dibangun di Indonesia untuk diterjemahkan dalam bahasa Arab. Toleransi dan kerukunan di Indonesia menjadi nilai yang tertanam dalam dasar negara Pancasila. Pancasila menyatukan kemajemukan bangsa Indonesia dengan tetap menghormati nilai-nilai dan praktek beragama yang dianut oleh masyarakat Indonesia. Umat Islam Indonesia mengembangkan konsep dasar ukhuwah atau persaudaraan dalam 3 aspek, yaitu ukhuwah Islamiyah atau persaudaraan sesama Muslim, ukhuwah wataniyah atau persaudaraan satu bangsa, dan ukhuwah insaniyah itu persaudaraan sesama manusia. Selain itu di Indonesia dibentuk Majelis Ulama Indonesia sebagai wadah bagi ulama yang berbeda mazhab dan pandangan untuk mengelola perbedaan di antara penganut Islam di Indonesia. Sementara untuk mengelola perbedaan antar agama yang berbeda, dibentuk Forum Kerukunan Umat Beragama FKUB di tingkat provinsi sampai di kabupaten kota untuk membantu menyelesaikan bahkan mengantisipasi masalah sekiranya terjadi gesekan-gesekan pada akar rumput. Di bidang pendidikan, Indonesia telah mendirikan Universitas Islam Internasional Indonesia UIII yang diharapkan dapat menjadi pusat pengembangan Islam moderat di Indonesia. Di bidang ekonomi, Indonesia berkomitmen untuk mengembangkan ekonomi dan keuangan syariah untuk meningkatkan kesejahteraan seluruh masyarakat Indonesia secara inklusif. Sementara dalam hubungan nasional, sesuai amanat konstitusi, Indonesia terus mengambil peran dalam upaya menciptakan perdamaian dunia, tidak terkecuali di negara-negara Muslim yang masih dilanda konflik dan krisis seperti yang saudara-saudara kita alami di Afghanistan. Dalam kaitan ini, Indonesia telah menginisiasi forum pertemuan ulama dari 4 negara. Afghanistan, pemerintah yang berkuasa pada waktu itu, kemudian kelompok Taliban, kemudian ulama dari Pakistan dan ulama Indonesia yang telah melahirkan Deklarasi Bogor tahun 2018 sebagai langkah awal untuk memulai dialog perdamaian di Afghanistan. Pada bulan Desember 2021, pemerintah Indonesia melalui Kementerian Luar Negeri telah menginisiasi pertemuan untuk menyepakati bantuan kemanusiaan yang bertempat di Islamabad, Pakistan kepada Afghanistan sehubungan dengan terjadinya kelaparan dan masalah sosial lain. Pada awal tahun 2022, Indonesia juga telah mengirimkan bantuan kemanusiaan kepada rakyat Afghanistan untuk merespon situasi kemanusiaan yang semakin memburuk di negara tersebut. Pemerintah dan rakyat Indonesia prihatin dan berharap bantuan tersebut dapat meringankan beban sekitar 23 juta penduduk yang terancam kelaparan, khususnya sekitar 3 juta anak-anak Afghanistan yang terancam malnutrisi. Saudara-saudara sekalian, apa yang telah Indonesia lakukan untuk mendorong praktik Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin di dalam negeri maupun di tingkat global tidak menjadikan bangsa kita berpuas diri, dan pekerjaan rumah kita masih banyak. Namun di pihak lain terbuka banyak peluang kerjasama untuk mengatasi berbagai tantangan untuk mencapai tujuan. Oleh karena itu, saya mengharapkan seminar internasional ini dapat menjadi wahana bertukar pandangan dan berbagi pengalaman terbaik sebagai bahan penting dalam penguatan penerapan Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin di masing-masing negara maupun di dunia. Sebagai penutup, saya mengucapkan selamat mengikuti seminar. Semoga Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala senantiasa memberikan inayahnya dan meridai setiap ikhtiar yang kita lakukan. Terima kasih. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thariq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Ma'ruf Amin, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, for the notable keynote speech. It is my deep pleasure to introduce Mrs. Dian Kartikasari, Chairperson of the INFID Executive Board, to deliver a committee report. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Mrs. Dian Kartikasari.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati, yang terhormat Bapak Wakil Presiden Republik Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin. Yang terhormat Menteri Agama Bapak Yakut Khalil Kaumas. Yang terhormat Ibu Menteri Luar Negeri Ibu Retno El Marsudi, yang dalam hal ini diwakili oleh Bapak Muhsin Syihab sebagai staf ahli bidang hubungan antar lembaga Kementerian Luar Negeri Republik Indonesia. Yang terhormat Ketua Umum PBNU yaitu Bapak Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, yang terhormat Pak Pimpinan Ketua PP Muhammadiyah yang diwakili oleh Bapak Profesor Dr. Kiai Haji Syafiq Muhni, yang terhormat Duta Besar Indonesia untuk Pakistan yaitu Bapak Adam M. Tugio, yang terhormat Duta Besar Indonesia untuk Tunisia Bapak Suhairi Misrawi, yang terhormat Duta Besar Indonesia untuk Malaysia Bapak Hermono, dan yang terhormat Duta Besar Pakistan, yang terhormat Duta Besar Malaysia, dan yang terhormat Duta Besar Tunisia untuk Indonesia. Serta yang terhormat narasumber, moderator, dan yang saya hormati peserta dari 4 negara dan dari berbagai negara, khususnya dari Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, dan Tunisia. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, puji syukur kita panjatkan kepada Allah Subhanahu wa taala yang telah memberikan nikmat bagi kita semua, sehingga hari ini kita bisa menyelenggarakan seminar untuk yang bertemakan dengan membangun kerjasama internasional untuk menguatkan komitmen dan praktek Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin di dunia. Yang terhormat Bapak Wakil Presiden, Menteri Agama, Menteri Luar Negeri, Duta Besar, narasumber, dan hadirin semua yang saya hormati. Perkenankan saya menyampaikan laporan terkait dengan seluruh persiapan dan pelaksanaan seminar ini. Pertama, seminar yang bertajuk Membangun Kerjasama Internasional untuk Menguatkan Komitmen dan Praktik Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin, yang merupakan kerjasama antara INFID, International NGO Forum for Indonesia, PP Nahdlatul Ulama, dan juga PP Muhammadiyah ini diselenggarakan sesuai dengan jadwal yang direncanakan, yaitu pada tanggal 27, pada tanggal 25 hingga tanggal 27 Januari 2022. Yang kedua, seminar ini diselenggarakan dengan maksud agar kita semua, khususnya para pemimpin dari Tunisia, Malaysia, Pakistan, dan Indonesia memiliki kesempatan untuk berkonsolidasi dan juga bertukar pikiran, sharing pengalaman dan konsep tentang Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin, baik dalam praktek maupun dalam diskursus, sehingga praktek dan diskursus ini dapat kita kembangkan menjadi sebuah pengetahuan yang tidak saja dipakai oleh kami 4 negara ini, tetapi juga bisa menjadi acuan atau menjadi rujukan bagi negara-negara di dunia. Kami juga berharap bahwa kerjasama ini, seminar ini bisa membahas dan memberikan ulasan bagaimana pola relasi negara dan agama yang berbasiskan Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin ini berkontribusi pada agenda pembangunan inklusif sesuai dengan tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan atau SDGs 2030 yang telah disepakati oleh PBB pada 2015. Yang ketiga, seminar ini diharapkan menjadi forum konsolidasi bagi semua pihak untuk meluaskan komitmen dan pelaksanaan Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin, baik bagi para ulama, masyarakat, cendekiawan maupun masyarakat secara umum dan organisasi masyarakat, sehingga konsep maupun praktek baik terus tumbuh dan terus memperkaya praktek-praktek baik untuk memperbaiki kehidupan berbasiskan Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin. Yang keempat, penyelenggaraan seminar ini diselenggarakan dengan mempertimbangkan kesetaraan gender, di mana komposisi narasumber, moderator memperhatikan partisipasi perempuan dan laki-laki secara seimbang sebagai wujud dari kesetaraan gender yang juga menjadi bagian dari Islam. Bapak, Ibu, para narasumber dan peserta yang saya hormati, seminar ini terdiri dari sesi pembukaan, 5 sesi diskursif, dan kemudian sesi penutup. Kegiatan ini juga disediakan penterjemah untuk ketiga bahasa, yaitu Arab, Inggris, Indonesia, dan juga bagi teman-teman disabilitas disediakan bahasa isyarat. Dan dapat diakses juga melalui YouTube INFID dan beberapa media sosial mitra INFID, NU Online, Islam.co, IB Times, dan Arahim ID. Dalam seminar ini kita menghadirkan para pembicara yang terdiri dari ulama, pimpinan organisasi masyarakat, organisasi keagamaan, cendekiawan dari perguruan tinggi, dan dari PBNU, Muhammadiyah, Pakistan, Tunisia, dan Malaysia. Setiap sesi juga akan selalu diawali oleh key message atau pesan kunci dari Duta Besar Indonesia yang ada di 3 negara tersebut, sehingga bisa memberikan kejelasan tentang konteks yang ada di negara di sana. Dalam seminar ini kami mengundang berbagai unsur dari organisasi masyarakat, perguruan tinggi, masyarakat sipil, pemerintah, pendidik dari 4 agama, Tunisia, Pakistan, Indonesia, dan Malaysia, 15 negara OKI, anggota OKI, kemudian berbagai negara bukan OKI. Sampai saat ini sesungguhnya sudah ada 475 yang mendaftar, dan mudah-mudahan ini akan terus berkembang. Partisipan yang hari ini masih mencapai 120. Berbasiskan salah satu benefit dari seminar ini, kami juga akan membagikan e-book background paper berisikan 11 tulisan dari tokoh NU dan Muhammadiyah, baik laki-laki maupun perempuan, dari 3 tema penting, yaitu pertama, menguatkan narasi Islam Rahmatil Alamin, lalu kemudian anak muda dan media untuk Islam Rahmatil Alamin, dan yang ketiga adalah pengalaman NU dan Muhammadiyah dalam pelayanan umat. Yang terhormat Bapak Wakil Presiden, Bapak Ibu Menteri, dan narasumber yang saya hormati, seminar ini dilaksanakan sebagaimana saya sampaikan tadi adalah kerjasama dari 3 lembaga, yaitu International NGO Forum on Indonesia Development atau INFID, Nahdlatul Ulama atau NU dan Muhammadiyah, didukung oleh Kedutaan Besar Republik Indonesia di 3 negara, yaitu Pakistan, Tunisia, dan Malaysia. Kami sangat berterima kasih atas partisipasi semua pihak dan juga dukungan yang sebesar-besarnya. Penghormatan dan ucapan terima kasih kami sampaikan kepada Bapak Wakil Presiden Republik Indonesia yang telah berkenan membuka acara ini, kepada Bapak Menteri Agama, Ibu Menteri Luar Negeri Republik Indonesia, pimpinan Ketua Umum PBNU, dan pimpinan Ketua PP Muhammadiyah, serta para duta besar dan narasumber sekalian yang telah memungkinkan kegiatan ini bisa diselenggarakan dan dapat bermanfaat bagi seluruh pihak. Semoga seminar ini memberi kita kekuatan, memberikan inspirasi, dan menguatkan komitmen kita semua untuk memperkuat Islam Rahmatin Alamin, baik dalam diskursus, konsep, pengetahuan, maupun dalam praktikal. Selamat melaksanakan seminar dan semoga kita semua mendapatkan rahmat. Amin. Terima kasih, saya kembalikan kepada MC, Bang Taufan.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dian Kartikasari, Chairperson of INFID Executive Board, for the key message you delivered to the committee report. Thank you very much. Step on to the following agenda. We would like to invite the Minister of Religious Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia to deliver his warm remark. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Yakut Khalil Komas.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Kamarudin Amin, Director General of Islamic Community Guidance, Mudir Am li Syu'un al-Islami Biwizara Syu'un ad-Diniyah. First of all, I would like to convey best regard His Excellency the Minister of Religious Affairs, Gus Yakut Khalil Komas, who is supposed to deliver his speech in this very interesting and important seminar, but because of something unavoidable to him, he asked me to represent him to deliver his remarks. So please allow me to deliver remark on his behalf. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Prior to giving my remarks on the seminar, please allow me to express salutations and greetings from various religions in Indonesia that convey the message of peace, tranquility, harmony, prosperity, welfare, and are commonly expressed here in Indonesia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Wededong Tian. His Excellency Bapak Profesor Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin, Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Ibu Retno Marsudi, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, Chairman of Executive Board of the Nahdlatul Ulama, His Excellency Bapak Profesor Kiai Haji Haidar Nasir, Chairman of Muhammadiyah, Chairpersons of INFID Board, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and participants from Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Tunisia, as well as from other parts of the world. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to the International NGO Forum on Indonesian Development, who took the initiative to organize the international seminar. Although our presence here is mostly in hybrid modality, it doesn't necessarily detract the spirit of this seminar. I support and welcome the seminar theme that is relevant and in context with the world we live in, which is loaded of disunity, hostilities, frictions, and warfare that cause casualties. While looking forward, the seminar will also contribute to certain even small concrete actions to the world peace and social justice. Similarly, exactly the quintessence of Rahmatan Lil Alamin itself. Speaking about the theme today, developing international cooperation and Rahmatan Lil Alamin, I believe, as mentioned earlier, His Excellency Vice President Bapak Profesor Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin has explained clearly, comprehensively about Rahmatan Lil Alamin. And later, Her Excellency Madam Minister of Foreign Affairs will also probably deliver important aspect of policy and development on Indonesia's international cooperation. However, I will view it from perspective of religious moderation, one of the core policies in the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and participants, the policy of religious moderation has been listed in the 2020-2024 National Development Plan, RPJMN, and where Ministry of Religious affairs is the leading sector. In our 5-year strategy planning, the target of religious moderation is expected to be implemented concretely at the national and international level. Religious moderation is indeed a middle way in terms of religious perspective, attitude, and practice, wasatiyah. To borrow political term, it is neither extreme right nor extreme left. It also prioritizes and builds peace, respect, pluralism, and human dignity, uphold noble moral and good deeds, and improve human life. Moreover, it has 4 salient indicators: national commitment, anti-violence, accommodative to local wisdom and culture, and tolerance. Ministry of Religious Affairs of Indonesia perceive that dialogue and seminars on religious harmony are no longer sufficient in maintaining and nurturing pluralism. Therefore, strengthening and mainstreaming religious moderation is urgently needed as a validity and justification for the presence of the state. One of the most crucial arguments for policymaking of religious moderation is the fact that Indonesian society is extremely plural, multi-religious culture. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and participants, as you all probably aware, as the largest archipelagic country in the world, Indonesia is also considered as a country with the largest ethnic groups. It has more than 714 ethnicities, 718 traditional local languages, and more interestingly, some of them have their own different written scripts, not to mention the quantity of religions and beliefs adhered to by the population. Sociopolitically, therefore, Indonesia has a robust foundation in developing strategic programs of religious moderation, as well as fostering other faith and religious sects in the context of Indonesia. But on the other hand, this diversity necessitates disparities and discrepancies, which potentially lead to disputes or frictions or conflict, causing national instability if not managed properly and wisely. This multiculturalism and plurality is currently an essential issue, especially after a series of ethnic and religious conflict in recent years. This issue is not solely related to the problem of managing conflict and diversity, but also concerned about the recognition of the existence of differences between adherents of same religion and between religious believers in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and participants, historically and empirically, Indonesia has been preserving and implementing cultural traditional philosophy, echoing the message of harmony, tolerance, altruism, and peace, as well as seeking common platform. It has been embedded and practiced centuries ago from one generation to other generation within the historiography of cultural tradition in Indonesia. Nevertheless, the noble concept and philosophy of life have been injured by the increasing number of acts and cruelty and violence in the name of religion or religious orders. Empirical facts show that provocations, hate speech, and incitement to violence are wrapped in various hegemonies and identities, be it religious, cultural, group, ethnic, or racial identities, triggered from abroad and domestically, have eroded and obscured mutual respect, compassion, peace, and unity. The development of the ease and speed of 5G connectivity, on the other side, has contributed to and become la porte d'entrée of extreme radical transnational ideologies and to spread rapidly in various lines of people's lives. Programs and strategic steps that have been carried out by the government are still considered to be quite less effective and efficient in warding off these ideological viruses. This is evident, for instance, by the proliferation of Indonesia's exposed to fanaticism and radicalism on behalf of religion or religious orders. As a consequence, Indonesian government, through the Ministry of Religious Affairs, views two critical things. First, modifying, creating, and increasing the effectiveness of religious moderation with an orientation to policies that are adaptive to the VUCA era: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and governance 5.0. An alternative to this policy can be done through the 5P: public, people, private, philanthropies, partnership. Everyone plays a role in conveying wasatiyah message of religious moderation through any media to anyone. Second, the enforcement of law to counteract and overcome the expansion of extreme radical transnational ideology through cross-sectoral synergy and coordination, both at national and international levels, through cooperation between countries, bilaterally, regionally, or multilaterally, on overcoming the issue of fanaticism, fundamentalism, radicalism, extremism, and terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and participants, finally, once again, I wish the International Seminar a very successful one with an excellent strategic topics and programs, both in terms of intellectual quality and social utilitarian, great speakers and fruitful discussions. May our international cooperation to strengthen the practice of Islam, Rahmatan Lil Alamin, across the globe be preserved and nurtured from our generation to the next generation as a tireless, never-ending effort. I wish we all have been working and contributing to our legacies by spreading love, care, respect, and peace for humankind. I wish you have a good work and partnership for humanity. So help us God. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you all. Ministry of Religious Affairs, Yakut Khalil Qomas. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Phil Kamarudin Amin, MA, Director General for Guidance of the Islamic Community, represent the Minister of Religious Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Thank you for the warm remark. For the next agenda, we would like to invite Mr. Mohsin Shihab, Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia on interinstitutional relation, to state his single remark. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Mohsin Shihab.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. May I begin by recognizing our respected dignitaries, their excellencies, Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Profesor Dr. Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin, Minister of Religious Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Yakut Khalil Qomas, represented by Profesor Dr. Kamarudin Amin, General Chairperson of PBNU Bapak Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, Representative of PP Muhammadiyah Profesor Dr. Kiai Haji Syafiq Mughni, respective ambassadors of Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia to Indonesia, Indonesian ambassador to Malaysia, His Excellency Ambassador Hermono, Indonesian ambassador to Pakistan, His Excellency Ambassador Adam Tugio, Indonesian ambassador to Tunisia, His Excellency Ambassador Zuhairi Misrawi, representative from INFID, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Allow me at the outset to convey the apology from Minister for Foreign Affairs, Her Excellency Ibu Retno Marsudi, for not being able to participate in this seminar because at this very moment, she is in Bintan accompanying President Joko Widodo for Indonesia-Singapore Leaders Retreat. Ladies and gentlemen, Efforts to build international cooperation to strengthen commitment and implementation of the philosophy of Rahmatan Lil Alamin as the spirit of Islamic teachings in the world is of significant task of Islamic civilization, which demands a synergy between the spiritual, civil, and human dimensions. In the context of the Muslim archipelago civilization, these notes of wisdom are not only relevant in the spirit of deliberation in the context of mere state activities, still they are also instrumental in translating this wisdom in the form of grace that originates from the level of ukhuwah Islamiyah into the broader scope, namely ukhuwah wataniyah, and culminating in ukhuwah insaniyah or ukhuwah basariyah. The government, as an embodiment of the human governance aspect, plays a unique role and responsibility to bridge the knots of spiritual wisdom as part of the national religion cultural set on the one hand, with human reality on the other, in the context of civil society, including at the global level. In turn, the Republic of Indonesia, as a forum for the most prominent Muslim community, which is also ranked as the third largest democracy globally, naturally plays a vital role as a leading vanguard in this endeavor. In this case, the partnership between the three pillars is a must. Among the roles referred to, the government's portion is to facilitate the process of interaction between ideas, institutions, and systems. It ultimately leads to the mechanism between countries in the context of a forum for international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants of the seminar, as an institution in the executive branch of the government of the Republic of Indonesia, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has initiated and facilitated various dialogues and collaborations since 2004, which in a sense encourages efforts to project Islam's Rahmatan Lil Alamin characteristics to the international cooperation stage. Among those initiatives are as follows. 1. Interfaith dialogue. It has been going on since 2004 and has become one of the main features of Indonesia's foreign policy. Through interfaith dialogue, Indonesia wants to build a habit of dialogue both domestically and abroad. For the interfaith dialogue conducted bilaterally, Indonesia has partnered with 34 countries. Regarding the interfaith dialogue, on the 2nd November 2020, a forum group discussion was held to discuss the evaluation and way forward of the interfaith dialogue implementation. One of the things emphasized in the evaluation section is that interfaith dialogue is part of a cost-effective preventive measure before a conflict occurs. In 2022, interfaith dialogue activities are planned in collaboration with Poland and Austria. In addition to bilateral interfaith dialogue, in the regional framework, interfaith dialogue has been carried out by Indonesia within the framework of ASEAN, Asia-Pacific, ASEAN, and MICTA, Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, and Australia, as well as Turkey. In addition, at the global level, Indonesia is the founder of the International Conference of Islamic Scholars, ISIS, and is active in the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, UNAOC, and the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Secondly, high-level consultations of world Muslim scholars on Wasatiyat Islam from the 1st to the 3rd of May 2018. It was attended by 85 foreign participants from 33 countries, 2 international organizations, and 60 participants from Indonesia. The participants are scholars and Islamic leaders. This activity was carried out in collaboration with various international institutions, one of which is the OIC. The purpose of this event is to revitalize the Islamic worldview of the principles of Islamic wasatiyah, especially in the midst of global challenges that are faced together, such as situations of uncertainty, chaotic, and disorder. The forum is also an arena for Indonesia to share experiences in applying the principles of Islamic wasatiyah. The Indonesian state architecture, which is based on Pancasila, the 1945 constitutions, and the motto Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, is a manifestation of the applications of Islamic wasatiyah principles. The third activity was Trilateral Ulama Conference, Bogor, 11 to 12 May 2018. Indonesia initiated the Trilateral Ulama meeting to contribute to the inclusive peace process in Afghanistan by inviting scholars from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Indonesia. The common thread linking the above initiatives is that, whether we realize it or not, there has been a three-dimensional global synergy between communities and entities representing the spiritual, state, and civil dimensions, where each element complements and strengthens each other in realizing the spirit. Rahmatan Lil Alamin as the identity of Islam, which radiates in the form of the following characteristics: tawassuts, moderate; tawazun, balanced or proportionate; i'tidal, fair; tasammuh, tolerance. Further deepening of this initiative is needed to form additional multidimensional synergies to strengthen each character emanating from the philosophy of Rahmatan Lil Alamin, still with Indonesia as the main driving force. For example, reinforcing the concept of empowering the moderates, becoming empowering the moderates millennials, intensive social branding on Indonesian Islam and Wasatiyah Islam. Interfaith dialogue revitalization needs to adapt to current developments, digital disruption, the COVID-19 pandemic, etc., by carrying out the concept of dialogue in action in various humanitarian activities. Interfaith dialogue exposure in international mainstream media needs to be increased. Increase in degree and non-degree interfaith dialogue scholarships. One thing is for sure, the three-dimensional synergy remains a must. In this respect, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs representing the state dimensions with regulatory and diplomatic powers, PBNU and PP Muhammadiyah representing the spiritual community with the death of Kanzul Hikam bil Faqih wa Ta'wil bin al-Bayani Burhani wal Irfani, and INFID representing the dimensions in the broader corridor of civil society need to continue to be at the forefront to implement this synergy. Without this three-dimensional synergy, it will be difficult to achieve the expected optimal results, namely voicing the principle of moderation as a common meeting point in building relations between nations, religious communities, and human beings, oriented towards peace and progress civilization. Finally, on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, we would like to express our highest appreciations to all committee members for their hard work, commitment, and enthusiasm in organizing this very meaningful activity. I thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohsin Shihab, Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, for the simple remark. Next, step on to the following agenda. Would like to invite Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Sakov, Chairperson of the Nahdlatul Ulama Executive Board, to deliver his warm remark. Ladies and gentlemen, Put your hands together for Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Sakop.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad ibn Abdullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi mawala. Amma ba'd, Honorable Minister of Religious Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Yaqut Khalil Qaumas, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Her Excellency Madam Retno Marsudi, Honorable Chairman of Muhammadiyah, His Excellency Sheikh Haidar Nasir, distinguished speakers and participants. Indeed, peace and compassion are among spirits of Islam. But Islam is not monolithic. Views and interpretation about Islam vary among different Muslim scholars and communities. What we need to acknowledge more is that a choice of view or interpretation of Islam is also a function of response to the context of actual reality, including political reality. So this account that includes the of political consideration in choosing a religious view or an interpretation about Islam is very important when we talk about how we can have the best practice to manifest and foster more the value of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. We need to acknowledge that the relative stability and security in international dynamics that we have nowadays is a result of an order that only emerged after the Second World War. Before the two World War, the World War I and World War II, there was no Indonesia, there was no Pakistan or Malaysia or Tunisia. These nation states emerged only after World War II as part of the emerging new order after the Second War. And this new order, which is supposed to reflect more of highest humanitarian and civilization, is still very young, imperfect, and vulnerable to subversion. And various communities and groups, including in Islamic world, keep seeing various kinds of failure in the order, failure to serve the welfare, the well-being, and the claim justice for various group and communities, including in Islamic world. And the dissatisfaction caused by these failures then is a great factor, a very significant factor that drives a significant groups in Islamic world to make a choice of going back to the previous order that we had before the World War I. That means aspiring for a universal caliphate. That was also the dominant aspiration among majority of Muslims in Islamic world before World War I, with the Ottoman Turk as the dominant and primary representative, the backbone of the civilizational construct of Islamic world or Islamic civilization. So the challenge that the Islamic world is facing today is a challenge to choose between going back to the previous world order, the previous construct of Islamic civilization, namely a universal caliphate, or a choice to follow this new order, this imperfect new orders, and join the rest of the world to try to improve, to perfect and strengthen this new order. So we need to discuss more about the realistic consequences of these choices. And we choose to aspire for the old order before World War I. That would mean for us to demand to erase the existing nation states that we have now, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. They're all must be gone and replaced by a universal caliphate for all. And everybody can imagine what would be the consequences of this choice for humanity. Now, the second choice is also not easy to follow, because the world order that emerged after the Second World War is also now gradually eroding. And the erosion has been posing great threats to the global stability and security, and even the very underpinning of global civilization that we have today. But these are choices that we need to discuss more, rather than to have an endless debate on various textual statements coming from classical tradition of Islamic orthodoxy, because what we have now is a very determining momentum. While we still have animosity hanging around, shadowing us against others, the threats to global security and stability is so dangerous that we need to make a decision the soonest we can. So the discussion about how to foster Islam as the true source of universal compassion is not going to be practically and realistically have results unless we discuss also the realistic consequences of our choices with regards to the factual context of political reality. I hope the discussion in this seminar will bring more enlightenment in our discourse and contribute substantially to a way forward for us to integrate more. I mean, for the Islamic world to integrate more to the rest of the world and have a harmonious, peaceful coexistence with others. Thank you. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thariq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. K. Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, Chairperson of the Nahdlatul Ulama Executive Board, for the warm remark. Next agenda, please allow me to invite Professor Dr. Shafiq A. Mubni, MA, Chairperson of the Central Executive Board of Muhammadiyah, to take over the screen and hear the gracious remark. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Shafiq A. Mubni, MA.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. His Excellency Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, Kiai Ma'ruf Amin, Excellency the Advisor of Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bapak Muhsin Shihab, Excellency Minister of Religious Affairs, Bapak Yakut Khalil Kumas, which is represented by Professor Kamaruddin Amin, His Excellency General Chairperson of Nahdlatul Ulama, Kiai Yahya Khalil Stakuf, His Excellency Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Pakistan, Bapak Adam Tugio, His Excellency Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, Bapak Muhammad Hassan, His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to Malaysia, Bapak Hermono, His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to Tunisia, Bapak Zuhairi Misrawi, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, Ibu Dian Kartika Sari from INFID, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for being invited in this international forum to express the idea concerning an issue which is very important in contemporary situation. The issue about Rahmatan Lil Alamin, Islam as the religion which brings peace, brings blessing for human being. I hope that this meeting will be productive and fruitful for the benefit of human being for our future time in order to develop a more just and peaceful order in this world. Ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, I would like to connect one of the ayah of the Quran to our discussion today. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. According to classical mufassirun, including At-Tabari, and also later writer Ibn Kathir, mufassir, who said that Rahmatan Lil Alamin exactly for the Muslims and also for non-Muslims. But for the modern mufassirun, it must be understood that there is no discussion anymore. Exactly, this ayah concerns with Muslims and also non-Muslims. They are entitled to the blessing of Islam. But to us today, I think it is very relevant to a broadening the meaning of Rahmatan Lil Alamin. Because in many verses of the Quran and also the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we find that Islam exactly blessing for Muslims. There is no question about that. Islam is also blessing for non-Muslims. There is no doubt about that. But the modern interpretation tend to stress that Islam also rahmat, the blessing for animals. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna Allah katabal ihsana ala kulli shay, fa idza qataltum fa ahsinul qitlata, wa idza dabahtum fa ahsinul dhibhata." Allah ordered us to do the best thing in every situation. When you kill an animal, you must kill mercifully. If you slaughter an animal, you must slaughter mercifully. This is, I think, a very important message of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for us, which maybe only little of Muslim Ummah today who care about how to be soft, how to be merciful to animals. But it is also merciful for the environment. Allah ordered us to do best for our environment, not to destroy, not to do anything harmful for the living creature in this world. I think we have to broaden the meaning of Rahman not only for human beings, but also for living creatures in this world. The real message of Islam, which is Rahmatan Lil Alamin, can be manifested in any situation exactly. But when we see the history of Islam in the past, we believe that the Muslims at that time contributed to the greatness of world civilization. They built spiritual foundation for Islamic civilization, especially in the classical age. But after that, with the rise of Western powers, with the colonization, the greatness of the Muslims at that time is shrinking little by little until the situation that we have to find our identity as Muslims. We have to build our power, our prestige in order to contribute more strongly to world modern civilization. And this is the problem, I think, because Islam is ya'lu wala yu'la alayh, but very often that the beauty of Islam is covered by the Muslim situation in the real life. So I think it is very important to find our message, the real message of Islam, that we have to search in the Quran and Sunnah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in this perspective, for the Muslims, I think today, we are facing with many situations. One of the others is that the rise, the development of religious extremism. Islam, as Rahmatan Lil Alamin, is covered by the religious extremism. The extremism means that they have to stand far right or far left in the meaning that al-ghulu, the extremism in Quranic term, it is mentioned in the Quran that iyyakum wal ghulu, according to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but in the Quran, qul ya ahlal kitab la taghlu fi dinikum. The wasatiyah is an alternative for religious extremism. So there is no other ways except that we have to develop the meaning, the message of wasatiyah, which is not only anti-extremism, but also it's anti-imbalance in our life. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our prophet, taught us when some Arab people came to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they vowed that they will spend all time for prayer. They will spend all the time for fasting. But Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't agree with that, because we have to give the right of our eyes, the right of our body. So in order to make a balance between the need of physics and the need of our spirits. The wasatiyah also means that we have to avoid the ultra conservatism and also ultra liberalism. Is going too conservative is not good, and also going too liberal is not good. We have to be in the middle, wasatiyah. According to the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. So with this idea, I think we have to mainstream our effort internationally. It is not enough to promote the wasatiyah Islam, the blessing of Islam, only for the Muslim, but also for the whole world. Because we are facing now what we call Islamophobia. It could come from the internal situation of Muslim worlds, with do not understand the authentic meaning of Islam, It is also because they have a political agenda which drives them to extremism. It is also coming from the general people who do not understand Islam. They misperceive Islam because of media. It is very possible. So the task of our ummah now is how to teach the correct, the original, the authentic message of Islam to the world. The second one, we are facing with global conflicts, the contestation between the powerful nations, among powerful nations, the conflict between one country with another country, the drive for manipulating natural resources. Those situations brings about the conflict today. So it is very important for us to bring the Rahmatan Lil Alamin as a mediator of the conflicts, as a peace builder among the conflicting powers in this world. We have to find a solution in order to establish peace and justice in this world. So it is very great burden for us to mainstream the wasatiyah, but it is not only in discourse, but also we have to implement the principle of wasatiyah, the principle of Rahmatan Lil Alamin in many cross-cutting issues. For instance, we have to talk about the importance of establishing justice in this world, establishing peace, and also developing well-being, the importance of developing education, and also engaging in developing science and technology, because those are the issues that connecting all the people, all the peoples of religions in this world. So by this, we can form elaboration or collaboration between the people around the world. It is not only the business of governments, but it is also the business of all peoples in this world. So I think it is very important now to establish, for instance, the Wasatiyah network, international network, which promote the Wasatiyah, but also involved in the engagement, discussing about the issues which are being very concerned by the Muslims and also the other peoples in this world. So I hope this meeting, this seminar will be productive and fruitful for our future generation. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Professor Dr. Shafiq A. Mughni, MA, Chairperson of the Central Executive Board of Muhammadiyah, for the kind remark. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the agendas we have presented to you this afternoon as we have finished our opening ceremony. Coming up, we are going to have a plenary session with the theme Islam, Human Rights, and Democracy, Concepts, Good Practices in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. Features distinguished speaker from Indonesia, Tunisia, and Pakistan. The session will be led by the moderator, Mrs. PP Anggraini from Muhammadiyah, Indonesia. So please make sure you are stay tuned. Do not leave the room. Finally, on behalf of the committee, we would like to say thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for your nice attention and participation. Enjoy the next session today, tomorrow, to the third day on January 27th, 2022. May each of us always be the active actor to spread the message of peaceful, tolerant Islam, Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin. I am Taufan Maulana signing out. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much and goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
As a religion of peace, Islam fundamentally emphasizes companionship, tenderness, and tolerance. The most majority of Muslims know that Islam means a blessing for the universe, or Rahmatan Lil Alamin. The implementation of peaceful Islam is nurtured as wider as possible for many Muslims across the globe. The concept of Rahmatan Lil Alamin, or the blessing for the universe, is prior to be fostered in various Muslim majority countries. The ulama and umaro continuously promote Islamic ideas and practices which contain the value of tolerance, peace, coexist with the principle of human rights hand in hand with local culture for every dawah, and compatible with democracy. Consistent in disseminating and practicing tender Islam plays key role in maintaining Islam as a religion of peace. To provide a dynamic and fruitful discussion, INFID, as the initiator, collaborate with Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, inviting various Islamic organizations in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia to join together. The discussion aims to share experiences and efforts that have made by the four countries in strengthening the understanding and practice of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. By having this international seminar, it is expected that the idea of tolerant and peaceful Islam in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia would become notable and influential image for global society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the international seminar, Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, good evening, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome and thank you for attending the online international seminar, Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. I want to inform you again that this seminar is a safe space for everyone. All participants are prohibited to make discriminatory comments, and also this seminar will be interpreted in Bahasa Arab, in Bahasa Indonesia, Arabic, and Sign Language. This seminar will be in webinar mode, so the seminar is using webinar mode, so everyone, every participant will be muted. Use the Q&A section at the bottom right of the screen to type the question. And also the question will be answered in question and answer session. So we will have special question and answer session. Make sure to use the Zoom application and have installed the updated version. And also, because we provide language interpretation, you can access the language interpretation by clicking the globe logo at the right bottom of your screen. Click the language that you would like to hear. You can choose English, Arabic, or Indonesian. We are now entering session 1 of the 3-day seminar series, The topic of session 1 entitled Islam, Human Rights and Democracy, Concepts and Good Practices in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. In session 1, we will discuss 6 sub-themes, namely, first, the correlation between Islam and state. Second, the correlation between Islam and citizenship, including the issues of minority and majority. Third, the experience of democracy in the Muslim majority countries, especially on freedom of opinion and expression. Fourth, reinforcing tolerance and prevent violent extremism. Fifth, reinforcing ukhuwah basyariyah and ukhuwah wataniyah. And the last one, the sixth one, the provision of the community basic needs on education, health, and economic support. This session presents 4 speakers who will share experiences between Islamic organization in Indonesia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. And An Titianggraini will moderate session 1. Henceforth, we will open this session by session 1 by listening to the key message that will be delivered by His Excellency Mr. Adam M. Tugio, Indonesian Ambassador for Pakistan. Without any further ado, to His Excellency Mr. Ambassador, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I should acknowledge the presence of Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Professor Dr. Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin, Ministers of Religious Affairs, represented by Professor Komarudin Amin, Minister for Foreign Affairs, represented by my good friend of mine, Ambassador Moksin Sihab, Chairpersons of Nahdlatul Ulama, Honorable Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, Chairpersons of Muhammadiyah, Honorable Professors Dr. Safi Amuni, distinguished panelists and participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us all. First and foremost, I would like to thank the INFID, Nahdlatul Ulama, and the Muhammadiyah for arranging this seminar. It is indeed an honor for me to be part of these conversations. We hear a lot about Islam being misrepresented in the news this day. I think the vice presidents and other previous speakers already make some outline how media portray Islam in such ways that now provide or pose a challenge for the Muslim community as the result. And I think based on that, given the issues faced by the Muslim community as a result of the conference themes is very timely. Both in the West and in the Muslim world, discourse on Islam, human rights, and democracy have continued to become hotly debated topic. Questions about the compatibilities of Islam and democracy is at the heart of this debate, as if Islam represents an obstacle to modernizations. Number 4. Sorry. Such debate has existed amongst Muslim scholars and thinkers even from the dawns of Islam. To summarize, diverse interpretations of the origins of values lead to varied opinions on the relationship between Islam and democracy. Islam is a divine revelations of comprehensive set of principles and moral guidance from God Almighty. Human rights, on the other hand, are seen as a collective of rights derived from logic with a human focus and linked to secularism. Consequently, if one views Islam as a structural organizational systems of values, democracy will be seen incompatible with Sharia Islam. In this case, a footnote is, however, required. Islam is silent on the type of government or on the selections of a leader. Early histories of Islam reveals no consistencies in the implementations of these models of governance. If one views Islam as a set of substantial values or principles that are critical to humanity, he or she will recognize that the two are mutually reinforcing. And Muslim scholars should be credited in this regard by demonstrating that the arrivals of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, meant the freedoms of mankind from all forms of human rights violations. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we find it remarkable that Islamic ideals like equality, al-musawah, plurality, at-ta'adudiyah, personal freedoms, protections, and tolerance, al-tasamuh, can be found not only in the Holy Quran, but also implemented in the 6th century charters of Medina. As a result of its liberating theology, Islam has pioneered the eliminations of slavery and discriminations against women, thus led to the establishment of human rights principles that we know in modern times. Why this is important? Let me put things in the context. Comparable ideas were articulated in Magna Carta in the 12th centuries or 6 centuries later, and the United Nations adopted Universal Declarations of Human Rights only in 1948. Given this lengthy interval, I believe it is not exaggerated to claim that the Charter of Medina was well ahead of its time, something that the Muslim community should be proud of, and as reflections of developing effective tools to support their implementations in today's environment. Let me fast forward to our time. The OIC adopted Declarations of Human Rights in Islam in 2010. The OIC has further established the Independent Permanent Human Rights Commissions, which Indonesia had the honor to hosting the maiden sessions in February 2012. I should like also to point out that the OIC's strong commitments to women's empowerment. This is very important to underscore, as many people mistakenly believe that Islam regards women as second-class citizens and restricts their capacities to exercise basic rights. Let me give you an example. In 2016, the OIC endorsed the Plan of Actions for the Advancements of Women. It outlines measures for mainstreaming gender equality in education, health, and promoting women economic empowerment. Last year, OIC adopted resolutions to preserve the achievements of gender equality and women empowerment. In light of the above considerations, dialogue about universality and cultural relativities of human rights in Islam, or from Islamic perspective, I'm afraid is less relevant. In terms of substantive value, once again, in terms of substantive value, Islam, human rights and democracy are not in conflict, but both are mutually reinforcing. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the Muslim world, like in other part of the globe, is in a state of flux, with its youth facing cultural disorientations. People's opinions have never been more powerful than they are now, thanks to the phenomenal growth of social media in the 21st century. As people seek more political space and more engagements in the shaping of their futures, effective governments certainly request the support of civil society, as well as a strong belief in and relentless nurturing of democracy. As a result, our most immediate challenge is how to continue implement basic rights and values while simultaneously preserving Islam, preserving religion as a source of energy for upholding them in all aspects of human life. Equally crucial is to consider how Muslim-majority countries can provide safeguard for citizens of all individual countries, allowing them to enjoy their constitutional rights in a free and responsible manner, and through democratic process, contributing in social economic benefit for each society and nations. Finally, before concluding, let me draw you to the findings of Islamic indices or index of 2020. It's worth noting that the paper recognized the importance of Islamic principles and teachings from the Holy Quran and Hadiths in establishing successful institutions and enhancing Islamic state's governance. Yet, the study demonstrates that non-Muslim majority countries outperform Muslim majority countries on average, with the majority of Muslim majority countries at the bottoms of the list. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, we should not feel offended or angered by the finding, but rather use them as a reflection for improving our status and conditions, thereby honoring Madani society's moral inspirations. With the foregoing in mind, I believe dialogue on the themes Islam, democracies, and human rights with experts and panelists from numbers of Muslim majority countries is very important. They might not only offer best practices in each country's effort to promote and safeguard human rights, but they can also contribute lessons learned on how democracy can help a country achieve social economic advancement. This would eventually help to strengthen our mutual commitment to implement and practice Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. I look forward to hearing fruitful discussions around the table. Thank you so very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador Adam M. Tugio, for delivering an impressive opening speech and the key message to start session 1. There are many important points that can be enrich our discussion later on. I personally, I'm very happy to hear Mr. Ambassador talk about women's empowerment from an Islamic perspective. Next, we will continue to the presentation session with our 4 speakers from Indonesia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. They are Dr. Philosophy Syafiq Hashim, Professor Siti Ruhaini Zuhayatin, Dr. Husnul Amin, and Mr. Ahmed Galul. Before we start the presentation session, I would like to inform you again that you also can access this online international webinar through YouTube channel of our media partner. As you can see from the screen, we have NU Online, IB Times, and many others. And also you can access these seminars through the YouTube channel of INFID and its members. You know that INFID, they have several organizations as its members. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and our respective speakers, we will start the presentation session with the first speaker, Dr. Phil Syafiq Hashim, who will deliver his presentation from 7 to 10 minutes. I would like to introduce him first before he start his presentation. Dr. Phil Syafiq Hashim, he is a Deputy Chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama Higher Education Institution. He also having a position as a visiting fellow at the Indonesia Studies Program, ISEAS Yusuf Ishak Institute, as well as lecturer and director of Library and Culture at the Indonesian International Islamic University, UIII, UIII, a newly established international graduate university in Indonesia. And also, he is a young lecturer at the Faculty of Social and Political Science, State Islamic University, Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Mr. Hashim obtained his Doctor Philosophy from Freie University, German, in 2014. Without any further ado, Mr. Syafiq Hashim, the screen is yours.
Thank you, the moderator, for giving very complete introduction to me. Yes, I'm Shafiq Kasim, not Shafiq Mukni, previously who speak in this session too. Today, I would like to uncover sub-themes of this session, of course, from the perspective of Indonesia, as well as from the perspective of Nahdlatul Ulama, as I'm supposed to be here as a speaker. The first theme that I would like to emphasize is about how Islam and state is perceived in the context of Indonesia. I think all of you know that the position of state and Islam in the context of Indonesia is very clear. Indonesia is neither theocratic state nor secular state. Indonesia is Pancasila state. In the Pancasila state, the state still consider the meaning of religion in the state affairs, but religion doesn't regulate the state as it happened in theocratic state. We have Ministry of Religious Affairs, for instance, doesn't regulate the belief of system of religious people, but to provide facility of religious people to practice their religion. However, I would like to say also some effort to include Sharia into the constitution or the state law of Indonesia remain unavoidable. We have so many legislation that emphasize to include how Sharia can also regulate the society and also the state affairs. Nahdlatul Ulama since 1984 stated that Pancasila is the final state form of Indonesia. It means that Nahdlatul Ulama doesn't agree with any effort to establish an Islamic state. Then, furthermore, Indonesia embraced the notion of democratic citizenship. Indonesia so far believe in equal right and duty as well as universal inclusion. The Constitution of Indonesia states that all Indonesian citizens are equal before the law. We do not have majority and minority concept or notion in our Constitution, but at political reality, we do have this kind of polarization between majority and minority. We are facing this reality in everyday life of our religious life in our context. Nahdlatul Ulama therefore state that the term kafir should not be used to call non-Muslim. This is very new fatwa decided in 2020 that because we still have confused understanding about the use term kafir or non-believers, and the use term kafir in everyday life of religious people can be used mistakenly and also create discrimination among citizens. Then Nahdlatul Ulama state that the term kafir should not be used to call non-Muslim in the practical politics of Indonesia. In the state system of Indonesia, we do not have kafir and non-kafir. All of them are the citizen of Indonesia. And then actually Indonesia also guarantee religious freedom in the constitution. All Indonesian people have freedom to believe and practice their belief, but at the practical level, we remain having some problematic issues regarding the use of blasphemy and also discriminatory policy and acts to religious sects such as Ahmadiyah, Shiite, local religion, as well as non-believers, maybe not to say those who do not believe in God or atheists. Of course, good credit to the procedural democracy should be appreciated, we have regular general election, we have regular leadership production, but our concern is that our democracy should also increase what we call substantive values and element of democracy. Then, as largest Muslim country in the world, I think Indonesia have very high commitments for the religious tolerance, because religious tolerance is one of fundamental issue promoted by our constitution, and this is raison d'être of Indonesia until the current situation. The high diversity of religion and also of belief, ethnicities, and many other things, Indonesia without religious tolerance is an impossible imagination. Nahdlatul Ulama since inception in 1926 has promoted religious tolerance, adopted from Arabic term tasamuh as one of important pillars of this organization. Tolerance or religious tolerance is promoted by Nahdlatul Ulama between Muslim and non-Muslim, but also among Muslim. Because why? Because Muslims are heterogeneous. We have majority Muslim, we have minority Muslim, we have Sunni Muslim, we have Shiite Muslim, and extra. Because of that, I think giving attention to the religious tolerance among Muslim group are very important. And also, as the responsibility of being the largest Muslim organization, Nahdlatul Ulama promote three models of brotherhoods. One is Ukhuwah Islamiyah, two is Ukhuwah Watoniyah, three is Ukhuwah Bashariyah. However, at the practical level, often criticism addressed to Nahdlatul Ulama so far is that the tendency of this largest Muslim organization to emphasize more on Ukhuwah Bashariyah and Ukhuwah Watoniyah rather than to Ukhuwah Islamiyah. This is criticism that we often hear from, let's say, some group of Indonesian Muslim in making criticism to the stance and the position of Nahdlatul Ulama in dealing with Ukhuwah Bashariyah and also Ukhuwah Watoniyah. Some people say that Nahdlatul Ulama is inclined to, let's say, support non-Muslim rather than to support their brother Muslim. And then talking about what service of basic need of the citizens should be provided or should be facilitated either by state or by Muslim organization or Islamic civil society organization. So far, Indonesia tries to fulfill the basic need of Indonesian people, on the basis of equal principle among its citizens. At the conceptual level, we do not treat discrimination to Indonesian citizens on the basis of belief, on the basis of ethnicity, and also on the basis of gender. All Indonesian citizens.
Pardon me, Mr. Shafiq, you only have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Of course, enough. All Indonesian citizens, regardless their religion, ethnicity, and gender, are subject of equal and fair treatment in their social, political, and civil rights. Nahdlatul Ulama views the basic need of citizens as its priority. It is the implementation of the belief of this organization that public goodness, public goodness is some kind of the intention of being Nahdlatul Ulama. As concluding remark, I would like to say that in general context of Indonesian Islam, human rights and democracy so far have been adopted, despite there is still a gap between conceptual and practical level. Nahdlatul Ulama so far has tried to discuss and have dialogues between democracy and human rights on one hand, and the religious tradition and discourse of this largest Muslim organization on the other hand. Mutual influence and criticism are the result of dialogue and discussion between the tradition of the ulama and also the tradition of democracy in human rights. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shafiq Hashim. Mr. Hashim explained very comprehensively about the correlation between Islam and the state in Indonesia, with Pancasila as the basis of the state, and how Nahdlatul Ulama encourages tolerance and peace in state life in Indonesia. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Shafiq Hashim. Please still stay with us, because we will continue with the question and answer session after all the speakers deliver their presentation. For the next presentation, we will continue the session by having Dr. Husnul Amin from International Islamic University, Islamabad. Dr. Amin is Associate Professor of Politics and Executive Director, Iqbal International Institute for Research and Dialogue, Islamabad. He obtained his PhD in Development Studies, specialized in Political Sociology from the International Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, The Hague. Currently, he is an associate professor at the Department of Politics and International Relations at the International Islamic University, Islamabad. Mr. Dr. Husnul Amin, the screen is yours. And also you have 7 to 10 minutes to deliver your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone there, including the organizers of the conference and my very dear friend and brother Shafiq Hashim. So we were there together in Germany and in the same institute. I was doing my postdoc and he was there for PhD. Thank you so much. Could you run the slides as well? I shared, or should I share from here?
Of course, the committee will provide the presentation.
Okay.
Please, Okay.
Okay. So that I can see it, because I can't see my own slides. So let me see. Okay. So I will discuss. Pakistan is having a very peculiar geography as well as very peculiar history, where Islam in very multifarious ways, intervenes, starting from the creation of this country, which was there rooted in the partition movement, and then in the constitution making process, and then proximity with the Iranian revolution, and then Afghan jihad, and this whole hosting that process, the presence of a huge, significant number of religious madaris, and of course there are thousands of graduates in the East Asian region as well who graduated from here. So it's a very peculiar history of this country, and it created peculiar problems as well, including the ideas of caliphate, and then abhorring the ideas modern citizenship, modern nation state, and then the ideas of jihad and violence, specifically a very problematic approach towards women and her freedoms, also the minorities, the non-Muslim minorities. So there are peculiar issues with that. So my focus is on some of the new male interpreters of a very tolerant and human-friendly Islam. And I will just introduce these scholars, writers, and who come mainly from political Islam, but also from other Deobandi variants and the Ahl Hadith, and also from other, and just quickly introduce their main concepts. So I will not take more than 10 minutes. So these new interpreters are, not necessarily graduates of the traditional religious schools, but they also graduated from modern universities. And I remember one Indonesian scholar in our madrasa conference, and he said, the reformist Islam, the job or the task of the reformist Islam cannot be left just to the ulama, because there could be other scholars from the modern institutions as well. So these new interpreters are graduates of universities. Also, some studied in madrasas, but they are not mainly from the madrasa tradition. So they have a new hermeneutics, new art of interpretation, and that hermeneutics, ta'bir, the usul of ta'bir, they actually gave them new space to imagine, to reimagine actually the Islam's relationship with modernity, with the state, with the citizenship, with democracy, with gender justice, and these issues. And so this is actually different from Islamic modernism, which was, initiated here in the subcontinent region by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and one very famous scholar who is very famous in Indonesia is Dr. Fazlur Rahman. So this entire intellectual movement is very different from them as well in terms of its hermeneutics and rules of interpretation. Because you will see they engage on one side ulama and Islamists, and the other side they will keep engaging the modernists as well, the liberal interpreters as well. So they think that there is enough capacity and accommodation within the text, because normally the textualists are considered as reductionists and essentialists, but they think that no, the text, if we could introduce these new hermeneutics of reading Quran and the seerah of the Prophet, then we will be able to create new space for thinking, reimagining these very complex relationships. So we don't need to necessarily bring these from outside the text. The text itself creates this space for this. These new interpreters have penetrated among the youth and the new middle classes, specifically women, Pakistani diaspora and diasporic community. So let me just quickly have a round of some of those faces. You will see this engineer, Muhammad Ali Mirza. So he is by profession an engineer, but he also studied religious text, and he is from an Ahl Hadith, Salafi background, but he is having millions of followers on the YouTube, in his YouTube channel. And you will see he is abhorring violence, extremism. He is very much rooted in tradition, but also engaging the religious scholars, also criticizing the traditional ulama for being so strict, for the strict adherence to several issues which are very problematic. Here is another face. I would rather call him the face of the official Islam in Pakistan. His name is Professor Qibla Ayaz. He is also known in Indonesia to some of you, and he is the chairman of the Ideology of Islamic Ideology Council, which is actually a constitutional body, and to revisit any laws, legislations which are made, and just to revisit and whether these are compatible with Islamic Sharia or not. So he is a moderate scholar. He speaks on these issues, and he is a new interpreter as well, specifically in gender accommodation, the women accommodation in social life, public spaces, democracy, and these issues. The main person which I would like to discuss, because the later other scholars are his students. He is Ghamidi, Javed Ahmad Ghamidi. He is in exile these days, actually in self-enforced exile, because he was threatened by the militants, attacked as well. And he is an ex-Islamist. I call him post-Islamist, but he is in the US now, and he lived in Malaysia in exile for several years. So he penetrated among the middle classes and among the new middle classes in Pakistan. He came up with these new ideas that, for example, jihad. So the jihad of that kind, which was fought by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that doesn't actually can be extended into this era. So that has become a historical category, because that was for the Rasul, for the messenger, and it is having its own rules and regulations, and that cannot be. The only type of jihad which we can have is against jabr, persecution, and that is fitna. So if a state wants to do jihad, that would be against actually religious persecution. If you are not allowed to practice your beliefs and to have religious worshipings, so even it can be actually fought against some Muslim states who are not allowing different religious groups to practice their beliefs and worshipings. So he is the man, grand intellectual religious scholar who is based these days here in the Texas, Dallas, and he's having his center there. He created a lot of influence as well as critical mass, inspired public policy, as well as the state officials in the military elite, as well as in the academia. And he is around 70 years old, and he created a lot of space to rethink. So this is Dr. Ammar Khan Nasir. He is coming from Deoband, a very religious, traditional religious family. His father and grandfather both were very prominent scholars of Deoband. But he, graduated there from his own madrasa, but he was inspired by Ghamidi's new hermeneutics and rules of interpretation, and he is now, a modern scholar. Dr. Farooq.
Pardon me, Dr. Husnul, you only have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Dr. Farooq Khan was also a scholar. He was killed by the militants, and he created a lot of reformist ideas and reformist influence in the northwest Pakistan. And he introduced this idea of the human-friendly Islam, that Islam which is friendly to non-Muslims, to minorities, to women. Another phase, he visited sometime in Indonesia, and I think he was hosted by Shafiq Hashim, and in the 90s, I think, late 90s or some early 2000s, sometime like that. And he is a very famous name in the media, and another phase is based in the US. So my point was that these new ideas, they come from within the text. They are not textualists, they are textual contextualists, I must say. So these come up with these inclusive, tolerant, moderate, gender-sensitive, human-friendly Islam, and they come from within the Quran and from within the Sunnah and the prophetic tradition. So they do not call themselves Islamists or modernists. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Husnul Amin, for your interesting and enlightened presentation on current situation in Pakistan, and also lesson learned that we can study from your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you already have a lot of questions in your head. But please be patient for a while, because we still have 2 other great speakers to present their presentations. For the next speaker, please allow me to introduce Professor Siti Ruhaini Zuhayatin. Professor Ruhaini currently serves as a senior member of Muhammadiyah and as a special advisor at the Executive Office of the President of the Republic of Indonesia. Professor Ruhaini is a professor on human rights and gender studies. Her doctoral degree was obtained at the Department of Sociology, University of Gadjah Mada, after she finished her MA at the Faculty of Humanities, Monash University. Without any further ado, Professor Ruhaini, you have 7 to 10 minutes to deliver your presentation. Thank you. The screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Titi Anggraini, the moderator. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon to all of you. Selamat sore untuk kita semuanya yang ada di Indonesia. It's a great honor to me to join this seminar. And at the outset, allow me to join other speakers to acknowledge the presence of dignitaries and excellencies, the Vice President of Indonesia, ambassadors and ministers, the representative of Foreign Ministry, the representative of Ministry of Religious Affairs, and then also the chairpersons of Nahdlatul Ulama, chairperson of Muhammadiyah, and also chairperson of INFID, and of course distinguished speakers in this seminar. So allow me to share. Okay, I hope that okay. I'm not disabled by the host, so please able me to share. All right. Okay. Okay. So I am expected to talk about Islam and Indonesia, which contribute to the global. I mean, it's like the global Rahmatan Lil Alamin. So I use this PowerPoint from other seminar, but I think this is still very much related to our topic. So please allow me to start with the question in the next slide. This is actually the face of Indonesia, and I pose the question of whether Indonesia is a good shape, and now right now is Indonesia in a good shape, and the second is what evidence for the good shape of Indonesia, and what modality Indonesia have, and also what Indonesia could contribute to global harmony or Rahmatan Lil Alamin. So I would also begin in the next slides with the general conditions of Indonesia. So I think this is quite relevant to our audience and participants outside Indonesia, including Dr. Amin, that Indonesia is the most scattered archipelago with 17,000 islands, as united as a country, and the biggest Muslim, I think it's the biggest Muslim community with relatively stable, with minor security issue. We claim that, this situation, and the most diverse country with more than 700 ethnic groups and 7 major religions, as well as hundreds of local beliefs. And we also claim that Indonesia is the most democratic and moderate Muslim country. Next. And my second question is, what evidence that Indonesia is right now in the good shape? This is some information on this regard. One is Indonesia is actually encouraged by world leaders to take a stronger leadership in promoting moderate Islam to contribute to the common grounds of universal values. This is actually the statements of the Indonesian of the president of Indonesia, that he has been encouraged by other leaders to take more leadership in the global forum, in the global fora, in order to promote moderate Islam, to build the common grounds of universal values. Indonesia is also well respected in managing tension and conflict. For instance, conflict in Aceh is now being the model in the Security Council in the United Nations as the model of conflict resolution in the world. And also Indonesia counter extreme interventions is now also adopted in the UN Security Council. So two things that we proud of, that Indonesia is now regarded as the model in this issue. And Indonesia is actively involved in peacekeeping and peace initiative. It is reflected in the membership in the Security Council, with also with the special mandate of handling conflict in Palestine, Myanmar, and Afghanistan. Next, please. Now, I would present how religious is unifying factor in the state formation. Yeah. So religious diversity is the solid historical heritage which is respected and celebrated since the independence of Indonesia in 1975. And the general feature, like other Muslim in Southeast Asia, Islam is the major religion, but less Arabized culturally and politically, where Islamic sectarians often triggered conflicts and wars. And Indonesia adopt the modern system in religious education in the very early nation state building, and this is, it marked actually the decline of ethno-religious sentiments in the local context. And it's also succeeded in establishing the modern religious organization as transformative agencies from ethno-religious sentiments into civic values underlying nationalism and modern government. And notably, this modern religious organization is Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama, that we as Indonesian feel that this is actually the blessing from Allah, that we succeeded in establishing this modern organization as the transformative agency that transform what is called the ethno-religious sentiment from our local culture and our local communalities. Then it's transformed all the sentiments, the religious sentiment, including the exclusive Islamic sentiment within the ethno-religious communalities, into the civic values that then underlying the principle of nationalism and modern governance. So and these two organizations also act as their having managed the civic authority of religious affairs in this country. And religious moderation is, of course, the unifying and integrating factor for highly and diverse and plural Indonesia. Next, please. Now, the religious moderations become the modality for nurturing harmony within the country. So this modality reflected in the position of religion, which remain as civil autonomy in the process of nation building. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that this the Islamic modern Islamic organization, we actually have more than I think 10 modern organization other than Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, but the biggest and the mainstream is actually Muhammadiyah and NU. And as I mentioned earlier, that the two organizations is having very fundamental roles in transforming such a kind of Islamic values into multi-religious society with inclusive settlement, interaction, and mutual respect and tolerance to differences. And of course, this organization also build the civil resilience against the politicization of religion. Therefore, in Indonesia, throughout the history of Indonesia, religious-based party is not gaining significant support from the people, because the two organizations is succeeded in guiding the ummah, the Muslim community to understand the differences between religious teaching and the religious teaching of Islam, and Islam used as a political interest. So we are also very grateful and thankful for this, and I think we continue to save, and we to continue to encourage the organization to take this kind of significant role. And the other side, religion, of course, is regulated by the state, but only for public administration and services. The state is not controlling the substance of religion. It is therefore in Indonesia, we still have the luxury of having a different interpretation, different factions of Islam. Of course, we do not deny that we have sometimes we have tensions, but insofar we are able to manage this conflict in the minimum level. Next, please.
Pardon me, Prof. You only have 2 minutes left.
Okay, I only have, I think, two slides to go. So the challenges is the religion and internal dividing factors. So as I said, I mentioned earlier that religion, especially Islam, is the unifying factor, but we also face the tendency and the energy of religion of being the internal dividing factors. As the country experienced dynamic political and economic progress and regress, religion are often used for raising public agony and social injustice for some groups, especially for their what is that? It is the reserving of the revivalist groups. And the time of crisis, ethno-religious sentiment is rising, accusing that democracy, human rights is part of Western colonialization, and it of course raising tension in the west part, for example, in the west part of Indonesia, Chinese Christian Chinese minority who dominate political sector often alleged as coalition with political leaders and being the targets of the Muslim majority. Conversely, in the eastern parts, a Muslim minority is also still undergoing discrimination from the Christian majority. Of course, this is our homework. And we also face the problem of political decentralization following the fall of military regime in 1998. Then it triggered the resurface of ethno-religious sentiment for political interests of the local elites. Then Islam become politicized. And next, I hope that this one is actually the last. Unprecedented rise of global religious populism strengthening the local, again, the local religious sentiment. Direct, unlimited, personalized internet and social media reduce state control over the people communication and connection. And it's become the very effective means of indoctrinations of fundamentalism, which then raise intolerance, post-truth sentiment, which leads to religious polarization and religious conflict. And also the transnational radicalism and extremism recruit misguided people through internet and social media, setting terrorist attack in favor of reviving the so-called Islamic State, such as Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the like. And I think this is my last slide, that coping dividing challenges in macro level is actually the collaborative effort that has to be reaffirmed, for religious moderation in order to achieve what is called Islam Rahmatan Lil Alamin. One is that state, mainstream religious organizations, civil society, media, and media have to be collaborated national, international against extremism and radicalism. Religious curriculum has to be controlled by Minister of Religious Affairs in order to prevent such kind of intolerance action. And also strengthening law enforcement on the electronic and digital communication to curb offensive expression, extremism, and radicalism. And the fourth is establishing counter-terrorist system instead and communal level, early warning and alarm system in order to prevent such kind of horrifying attacks to happen. And the last, this is actually the message to the governments, to the state, is that the state have to be accountable to the people, accountable to people in combating corruption, providing better health services, creating job opportunities. So that is, then it's become the collaborative efforts from the state, from the religious organization, civil society, in order to nurture democracy and human rights, and at the same time it's preventing extremism and radicalism. And of course it has to be extending to the collaboration from other Muslim countries, whether this is in the multilateral level or in regional level, like in the OIC, and also in other efforts. But I think this is our responsibility to promote Islam as Rahmatan Lil Alamin. So thank you very much, Mbak Titi. I give back the time to you. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Ruhaini. It's okay to have the presentation time of Professor Ruhaini is a bit long, For me, it's part of the affirmative action as the only female speaker for this session.
Thank you very much for that.
And I also absolutely agree that Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah are blessing for Indonesia that unite the nation and make many contribution in building a tolerant and moderate religious life in Indonesia. And the impact of this situation is not only for Indonesia, but also for ASEAN, regionally and globally. Thank you again, Professor Ruhaini. Now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speaker and participant, we reach our final speaker for session 1. Last but not least, we have Mr. Ahmed Galul from Ennahda Party Tunisia. Dr. Ahmed Galul is a scholar and as well as politician. He has written a vast range of writing, from academic publication in philosophy, theology, and political thinking to novels and kids' stories. Very interesting. He is also pursuing his PhD project on human agency and God's agency at the University of Reading, United Kingdom. Besides having membership in Ennahda Party Tunisia, Mr. Ahmed Galul is also a lecturer on Islamic studies at the European Academy for Islamic Studies, London, United Kingdom. In governance, he is the advisor for the Prime Minister responsible for sports and youth affairs. Without any further ado, Mr. Ahmed Galul, the screen is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for this invitation, and thank you for the interest in this topic. Well, just to mention that right now I'm not anymore a member of the government. My last position in the government was as a Minister of Sports and Youth a year ago. So without making it long, I mean, speaking about Islam, human rights and democracy might be quite an interesting issue to discuss. What's more is to discuss this issue in practice. If we can, I would like to make this presentation into two parts. The first part is a conceptual approach. I will refer to a number of scholars, mainly Tunisian scholars, and then I will see how far this conceptual approach have been applied in Tunisia. And then what about how are we going to move forward? The main scholars to whom I'm going to refer are mainly Sheikh Tahir bin Ashur. Sheikh Tahir bin Ashur, he's one of the most famous scholars in the Muslim world. He's written a book about Maqasid al-Sharia and following the Sheikh Shatibi, Imam Shatibi. And also he's written a book about Usul al-Nizam al-Ijtima'i fil Islam, the foundations of the social system in Islam. And one of these main important books is his Tafsir al-Quran al-Tahrir wa-Tanwir. His colleague, Sheikh al-Khidr Hussein, who is a Tunisian, and he was at the same time the Imam A'zam of Al-Azhar, Jamiat Al-Azhar. And the third one is Sheikh Rashid Al-Ghannouchi, the current leader of our party and one of the most prominent scholars, Muslim scholars during the 20th century. All of these scholars consider that one of the main maqasid of Sharia is freedom and hurriya. We need right now, without making it length, that we will maybe need to discern between the concept of religion and the concept of deen. I mean, there is quite a difference. Deen might be taken as part, religion might be taken as part of deen. So because deen is mainly in Arabic language, it has 21 usage. And religion, that is belief, is just part of this concept. And the main usages of the term deen are related to relations and power relations and so on. And the Deen has two systems of laws according to Ibn Ashur. So we have Diana, which is related to the laws of Ibadat, and you have Sharia, which is related to the laws of Muamalat. For the Maqasid al-Sharia, it has many Maqasid. This is a wide topic of scholarship, but one of its main Maqasid is al-Hurriya, that is freedom. And freedom here is related to all mankind. That is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises himself in the Surah Al-Fatiha, the first surah which every Muslim will recite, saying, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. One of the reasons that Allah is praised because he is the Lord of Al-Alameen, that is all mankind, independently of their beliefs, independently of their religion. That is where the law of Sharia will take into consideration the diversity of mankind. And here there is a book which might be very important, written by Sheikh Al-Khidr Hussein. As I said, he was the Imam Al-A'zam of Al-Azhar. And this book speaks about Al-Hurriya fil Islam. And it has a very important chapter which speaks about Al-Hurriya Diniya, the freedom in Deen. And Hurriya in Islam, it is related to the freedom of belief, but not only the freedom of belief, it is also the freedom in Deen, meaning the freedom in regard to the legislations which communities might follow. So a non-Muslim within a Muslim ruled state have the freedom to apply his Deen, meaning his Sharia. And here the scholars, whether Tahir ibn Ashur or Khidr Hussein or Sheikh Rashid al-Ghanouchi, refer to, for example, the story of Sayyidina Yusuf, how he went under the Sharia of Fir'aun. And also you have the famous ayah, La ikraha fi din, and the source of this ayah, then when the Sahaba, the Ansar, they wanted to have their kids back from the Jews, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed them that you do not have the right, even for your sons and daughters, to coerce them in relation to their beliefs. So this is one of the main issues, that is al-hurriya, and securing the ability of every individual to be free, and especially in regard to his beliefs and behavior, is one of the main maqasid of Sharia. For freedom to be implemented, it needs, according to Khidr Hussein, two things. It needs shura, or in other words, according to Ibn Ashur, it needs democracy, and it needs equality. So two things which are very important. Sheikh Rashid al-Ghanouchi adds that for democracy to be implemented, I mean, Ibn Ashur in his book, Usul Fiqh al-Islami, expands in explaining, in founding the concept of democracy. I mean, he's written his book during the 40s of last century, 1943. So this concept has been dealt with, Ibn Ashur, Khidr Hussein, along with Muhammad Abda in Egypt and Al-Afghani before them. That is, I mean, considering that democracy is a good practice, is a good Islamic practice. Ghanouchi adds that for a democracy to be implemented, it needs a precondition, which is consensus, because, I mean, in order to rule, there are two ways. You have either, like Ibn Khaldun says, asabiya, mutaghalliba, an overpowering asabiya or kinship, or through consensus or shura of the people, that is democracy. And democracy cannot be implemented unless there is a consensus between different and conflicting stakeholders, for example, between Muslims and non-Muslims. And this brings us to what happened in Tunisia, actually, after 2011, or what we do proudly describe as the Arab Spring. When faced with the actual governing experience, Mr. Ghanouchi and Nahda Party, we were either to go through what we call radical approach to politics, that is considering that we are right while others are wrong, or trying to follow the values of Islam. And in this, we went, especially Mr. Ghannouchi has made a lot of effort in order to bring Islamic values, whether in regard to electoral law, so that the electoral law does not exclude other people because they are different, or to make a constitution which expresses the widest possible consensus within the society, with the Islamists, as they are described, secular or atheist, as they do like to describe themselves, because a constitution is a aqd, it is a contract, it is a social contract which expresses the widest consensus within the society, which does not express our beliefs as Muslims or Islamists. And this also can be referred to Ahd or Aqd al-Madina, which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described, or has, first of all, he's described the population, the Ummah in al-Madina, in which there was part of that Ummah non-Muslims or Jewish even. So that is the first constitution. In the same way we've done it within our constitution in Tunisia, which has allowed everyone to be there. Not only that, we went into giving or allowing, providing the widest possible, wide of consensus. However, democracy in itself is not enough, because democracy within the 20th century has a lot of weaknesses, and this has happened in many countries in the world, especially with the development of tools of propaganda and the manipulation of public opinion. And especially when there is a country which is going through a transitional phase, such is the case in Tunisia, democracy can be weak. And the weakness of democracy will lead definitely to instability, and instability will give rise to populism and radicalism. And it also gives the possibility for regional conflicts to get in and to overcome or overpower democracy in itself, which has happened in Tunisia since 2019 with the rise of populism and the ability of some regional countries to interfere in our country, a matter which has led to what we do consider as a coup d'etat against democracy, what we are describing as the constitutional coup, which has been made by the current president of the country. This puts us as a party, as Muslim Democrats, in front of a very hard test. Should we still believe in the values of democracy and human rights, or should we consider that democracy is a total failure? And for example, that the only way to get your right is through violence or through radical approach. We have decided that what we need to do is to believe in the democratic values, to work with others, and not to consider that this is an issue which just touched us, and to give the 10 years of investment in democracy and freedom a possibility to express themselves. And alhamdulillah, this is actually working. However, in order to go beyond the state, the previous state, a democracy needs to be strengthened. One of the main weaknesses, which has been explained in very important program, which speaks about the big hack. I mean, the big hack is a program which speaks about how social media in modern times, especially during the last few years, is able to manipulate the public opinion. And in that program, they speak, especially here, for example, in Britain, after what happened in Brexit, or even what happened in the United States election with the rise of Trump and a number of other countries. So,
Pardon me, sir, you only have
right
1 minute left. Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
I'm finishing right now. Thank you very much. So the only way to fight, I mean, this weakness of which is there in democracy is what Ibn Ashur calls al-waza' al-nafsani, which is basically related to what Khidr Hussein speaks about education. A non-educated or a non-educated citizen or non-educated population is easily manipulated, which will lead definitely to the rise of populism and to the rise of extremism. Islam provides for every citizen the basic values of education. Those are values which are related to Tawheed, values which are related to Iman and so on. But this is the biggest issue. And the idea is Islam provides, secures the individual from the possibility of mind manipulation, which makes it as the best ground and tool to secure democracy and freedom. Thank you very much for your time, and this is my speech. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Galul, for sharing your perspective on Tunisia current situation on its politics and democracy. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all of the speakers have delivered the material very well and clearly. Now we reach our session to have question and answer sessions. Because of the limited time, we only have 20 minutes for the question and answer. In question and answer feature, we already have 2 questions that sent to Dr. Husnul Amin and also to Dr. Ahmed Galul. I will read the question so you all can understand the question, because not all of you access this seminar through Zoom, but some of you access through a YouTube channel. First question is from Mr. Abdul Wahid. His question is, my name is from Mr. Naziful Haq. His question is, my name is Nazif. I'm from PMII Sleman. It's a youth student organization from Nahdlatul Ulama. I will ask to Dr. Husnul Amin. His question is, in Southeast Asia, in South Asian countries which have intense penetration of capitalism and modern development agenda, such as Indonesia and Philippines, for example, youth generation are susceptible for transitional Islam ideas and right-wing Islamic populism as a response against Western and liberal ideas. I wonder, by the peculiar condition of Pakistan politics, Islam and modernism, how is the condition of young Pakistan Muslim there? Are they also prone to a certain kind of threat as well as happen in Southeast Asian countries, or you have different perspective? And also a question from Mr. Abdul Wahid. I would like to get more information about democracy development in Tunisia and Pakistan. We know there is sustained conflict in politics in both countries in the name of religion. So Indonesia also has problem during presidential election in 2014, and there is politicking Islam religion. Please make confirmation about this happening, Mr. Shafiq and Mr. Zuhayatin. I would like to invite Dr. Husnul Amin to start the question and answer. The time is yours.
Thank you so much for the questions, Mr. Naziful Haq. So, yes, Pakistani youth is equally susceptible, vulnerable, prone to the same kind of, transnational Islamist ideas like caliphate and other ideas. But one thing here is that in Pakistan, we have a procedural democracy at least, because elections are taking place and we have political parties, and the Islamist forces do not actually win popular support in the elections. So whenever there are elections, unless there is a coalition made by the military, they cannot win popular support. So that's, I think, one reason that the youth, which are very much susceptible to violence, they remain in the fringes, and sometimes they create some networks and some, do some violence as well in isolated like pockets here and there in urban spaces. But due to the presence of political parties, at least a procedural democracy which is controlled and hybrid and surveilled by the military establishment, but still these all processes discourage the ability of the youth to come out for large scale popular kind of violence in the urban spaces specifically. Also, the democracy, condition of democracy question in Tunisia and Pakistan, that's also somehow related to this. So I would like to reflect on this, on both questions in the same answer. Pakistan is having a procedural democracy, no doubt, but it's an illiberal democracy. Illiberal democracy because, as Professor Ahmed Galul, he was reflecting on, democracy is not just elections, it's more than that. So it's like freedoms in the media, academic freedoms, freedom of expression, legislation, and different, and then access to basic services and social services. All this whole governance model actually makes up a very good democracy. But procedural democracy is here. Without these liberties, it makes it more vulnerable and susceptible to such adventures in Pakistani politics as well. One last thing I will just reflect in 1 minute. That is the poverty of ulama and the scholars. They don't have new ideas. They do not research. They do not do ijtihad. They are not open to new ideas. And that's one reason that the new youth is coming up with new questions, challenging these ideas of caliphate and citizenship and these violence, jihad, and these. But the scholarship, both academic and social and public intellectuals, they are not rich in new ideas which can respond amicably to the youth. I think, I must appreciate, when I was in Tunisia, I did that as well there, that this Muslim Democrats, the idea of this Muslim democracy, it is a way out. We should capitalize on this. We should build on this, that there is a middle ground between these ideas of secularism, which are not working as well in Muslim societies, and ideas of caliphate, ideal Islamic State, and Islamism. These are also the other extremes. I think the middle ground is what actually Nahda in Tunisia, and some groups here in Indonesia, and some groups, Hizb al-Wasat in Egypt, for example, they have come up with new ideas of like this Islam without fear, and these democratic Islam and Muslim Democrats. I think these are workable ideas, but we need to do more on further development of these ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Husnul Amin, for your comprehensive response to the two questions raised by the participant. So let's continue to the next speaker. I would like to invite Mr. Dr. Ahmed Galul to respond to the question from Mr. Waid from Indonesia, who is asking about more information about democracy development in Tunisia and Pakistan. To Mr. Galul, the time is yours.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I did not.
Okay. So the question came from Mr. Abdul Wahid. He was asking to get more information about democracy development in Tunisia and Pakistan. He said that we know there is sustained conflict in politics in the both countries, especially for you in Tunisia, in the name of religion. Indonesia also has problems during presidential election in 2014, and there is politicking of Islam religion. So that's the question from Mr. Wahid. The screen is yours, Mr. Galul.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Wahid, for your question. I had in purpose put forward a theoretical discrimination between the concept of deen and religion at the beginning of my speech. And also, I have tried to explain that within the legislation, the jurisprudence, Islamic jurisprudence, there are two fields, that is the field of legislation of Diana and the field of legislation in Sharia, that is Muamalat. And in the field of Muamalat, it deals with individuals independently of their beliefs. And even within that field, Islam gives the freedom to what we might call communitarian rules, communitarian legislation. So for a non-Muslim, who is being ruled under the authority of Muslims, Islam gives him the freedom to choose the type of legislation. It is very problematic for us as Muslims within the modern time to rule under the banner of religion, because the concept of religion is mainly a concept which translates the Christian culture rather than Islamic culture. And in Christian culture, the modern state is an image of the church. And now you have, so the church, the main concept of the church is what we call the al-hulul, that is the word of God, according to the Christian, descends in the mankind, that is a priest. And within modern states, especially the French model, there is no church, but the state is like a godlike entity. And under that authority, there is no way of freedom. You are a citizen, meaning that you should be like a square or triangle. That is why the state has overpowers the identity of its members. And there is also a difference between Catholic Church and Protestant Church. Protestants are closer to Islam. That is why the Anglo-Saxon system is really closer to Islam. And here you can read what Ernest Gellner speaks about Islam and modernity. It is a very important book. So for us Muslims, that is why I agree with my colleague who was speaking before me, speaking about Muslim Democrats, because the term Islamism is not a good term. It does not describe Islam. It does not describe us. So what we like to do, our Sharia is mainly based on bringing about salah, that is good in earth, and avoiding fasad. But the base of all of this is freedom, al-hurriya. If one does not choose to believe, he cannot be a Muslim. You are only a Muslim because you are free, because you freely choose to that. And Islam tries to empower mankind or Muslim individual by all the means so that he can discern between right and wrong. First, he understands, and then he can exercise his freedom. That is why the concept of fitna, حتى لا تكون فتنة ويكون الدين لله. The scholar explained fitna, that is al-ikrahu fi din, that is coercing people to believe in something which they do not want to choose to believe in. So hurriya is very important in Islam, and it is a condition of taklif, that a mukallaf in Islam cannot be a mukallaf if he's not free, if he's not rational, if he cannot understand. So we need to take, first of all these issues and discern between what we have inherited from modern time understanding of politics, public sphere, state, and what Islam during about 14th century is dedicating us to do. So we need to re-educate ourselves, first of all, in understanding our deen and understanding how Islam, deals with public affairs and the understanding of freedom of mankind. So I do not want to put it longer. What we have tried to do in Tunisia is to discern between what is called ideological background and how we deal with public sphere. And we are saying that Islam is a better guarantee for freedom, for democracy, for pluralism, and for consensus. I'm sorry for being long.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Galul. It's very comprehensive and enlightened. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I know that we still have so many questions and ideas in our head, but because of we have limited time, now we reach our end session. We still have one question left that raised by Mr. Ahmad Mulyana. For this question, I would like to invite all the speakers to respond to this question and immediately followed by closing remarks regarding our topic today on Islam, human rights and democracy, concepts and good practices in Indonesia, Pakistan, and Tunisia. For the first response and closing remarks, I would like to invite Dr. Phil Shafiq Hashim to have his response to the question and also to provide us with the closing remarks. Mr. Hashim, the screen is yours.
Yes, the question is for the minority and majority issues in the context of Indonesia and also...
Oh yeah, pardon me, Mr. Hashim, I would like to read the question so all the participants can understand the question, because the question is in Bahasa Indonesia. I will read the English version. So the question from Mr. Ahmad Mulyana is about how to build Islamic culture in majority and minority countries and avoid friction from the bottom to the top, and convince all levels of society that Islam is not an anarchy religion and dangerous for adherents of other religions. Thank you and wassalam. That's the question to all the speakers. Sorry, Mr. Shafiq Hashim. Now the time is yours.
Thank you. I think majority and minority concept is not theological concept, even not Islamic concept, but this is so much more political and sociological concept. Religion doesn't need the number of the people, the number of representative, and also the number of person, but religions need our belief and piety. Because of that, I think if we would like to deconstruct misleading concept on majority and minority associated with the number of religious people and number of religious followers, I think the thing that we should do in the first issue, and this is, I think, the responsibility of many Muslim organizations in Indonesia, try to let's say discuss and also to define against both Islam and the population of Islam in the context of Indonesia, which is not to be connected with the issue of people numbers or followers number. And I think if we can do let's say educating our Muslim fellow about this kind of concept, that majority and minority is not religious concept, this is a political and sociological concept. I think we can, let's say, build what we would like to have in the peaceful connection and collaboration between us, between Muslim and non-Muslim, and also between Muslim and Muslim. Because as I mentioned before, that if we talk about tolerance, if we talk about how to become peaceful from one to another. I think we should talk a lot about the connection between Muslim and Muslim. In reality, we have heterogeneous Muslim group, and each group fights each other, yeah, in competing theological and also political interpretation of Islam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Phil Shafiq Hashim. I'm sure that your response is also part of your closing remarks. For the next, I would like to invite the next speaker to give his response and also closing remarks to Dr. Husnul Amin from International Islamic University Islamabad. The screen is yours.
Thank you. In my humble understanding, you know, the categorizations you have made in the concept paper of this conference are amazing. These are beautiful. You know, we all have these 3 levels, and we should actually educate our society or our youth through, you know, the religious medium, to universities, through the public policy, at what actually these 3 concepts mean. So the very first identity we all have is the Muslimness. So the Muslim should be like Uhuwa, like they are brothers and sisters with each other. It's not more in the political sense, but more in the social sense, that all Muslims living across the world, because the concept of Tawheed and the concept of a belief, certain beliefs, they actually bring them together. But that is not the only identity they have. They have another identity, which is a citizenship in a modern nation state. Indonesia, Tunisia, Pakistan, all these are actually modern nation state and which are not contrary to Islam. So, you know, these ideas of global caliphate, and these should be properly handled and dismantled, because these are just Arabic vocabularies. And you can call a hukam, you can call a leader of a government a Khalifa or an Amir al-Mu'mineen or a prime minister. This is just the terms, the concepts used for these. So I think that is the second thing, because when I live in the US or in the EU region, I sign an agreement, a contract, that I will live and I will rule, I will be abiding the rules and the laws here as minority there. But you know, they don't discriminate on this, like the minority majority, that is, they have citizenship. So citizenship, as Shafiq Hashim was saying, it actually cancels out these other kind of categorizations. There is no majority and minority. They all are citizens. So when they have citizens, they have rights and responsibilities. And the third thing is this, the Bashariya, you know, the identity that we all are human beings, and our relationship with Christians, Hindus, Chinese, non-Muslims, Muslims, everyone should be on the basis of that. We all are creatures, sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, and we are created by one God. And you know, there is a common link between us, among us, and that is the Bashari, and on the basis of that, we owe certain rights and responsibilities to them as well. So I think if we could proper educate our new generations, both in schools and madrasas and colleges and universities, and as well as society at large, we would be in a very much more better condition, as well as we will actually enjoy the peace and tolerance of our society. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Now, please allow me to invite the next speaker to deliver her response and also closing remarks to Professor Ruhaini. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much again. And I would like to convey my gratitudes to Dr. Husnul Amin and also Dr. Ahmad Lul for very inspiring presentation and also deliberations for strengthening our position, our Muslim position in response to modernity, democracy, and human rights as well. So I think I would like to reiterate three aspects in brief. One is that, as also mentioned earlier by two speakers, that we still have the challenge of unfinished unfinished transformations of Islam in ethno-religious communality, which is which were very exclusive with the identity, and then there is also charismatic leaders, and the transformation is not finished to full nation state, to full citizenship of the modern nation state. So we have to be aware of this and trying very hard how to make this transformation become more and more stronger by also encouraging the civil society organizations to work with the people in that kind of process. And the second is also we have to be mindful with the resurfacing of the Islamic revivalist groups, mainly political, who have an attempt to restore what the so-called Khilafah Islamiyah, which is of course it should be prevented because some of the principle is not in harmony with modernity and democracy. And the third is encouraging civil supremacy in order to handle all the religious issues, and very much encourage the state for minimum intervention. So I convey this message from the office of the executive office of the President of Indonesia, that the Indonesian government right now is trying to very hard to give more autonomy and more authority for the society to handle the religious tension happens in the society, and the state is only taking part in handling the criminal cases. So and avoiding so much litigative and judiciary process in this regard, in order that the society have their own strategy and their own process to recover from any kinds of religious tension. I think this is actually the message from me, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ruhaini. Very comprehensive response. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ahmed Galul to respond to Mr. Mulyana question, and also to give your closing remark for the session one. To Mr. Dr. Galul, the screen is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, shukran, and thank you very much. Just to try to answer Mr. Ahmed, I would like to also make a final word. I mean, there are three main concepts in Sharia in Islam, at least three main concepts, which are al-hurriya, al-musawat, and al-adala, that is freedom, equality, and justice. Ibn Ashur and Shatibi and other scholars will add some other aspects to Islam, that is, Islam is the religion of fitra, and Islam is a religion of samaha, that is, and there is another concept also, that in Islam, the term of ukhuwa is not mainly a term which is ascribed to ukhuwa fi din, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ascribe ukhuwa within individuals in society, even if they have different beliefs, such as when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, for example, wa ila adin akhuhum Salih. I mean, Salih and the Qawm Ad, the people of Ad, are non-believers, and Nabi, the Prophet Salih, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has binded this relationship with ukhuwa. So the concept of ukhuwa is why, I mean, there are different types of bindings and kinship within societies. Another thing, Ibn Ashur speaks that under the Muslim rules, there are, I mean, people are described as Muslims, even if they are non-believers. When he speaks about kuffar al-Muslimin, the introductions of, and this goes to the concept of citizenship. Finally, it is very important to speak that in Islam, I mean, there is the minimum level of statehood, of state, because state is usually related to coercion, and the widest possible sphere for society, or what Sheikh Rashid Al-Ghanouchi calls al-mujtama al-ahli. And that is why the concept of ruling in Islam, I mean, the state had a very marginal sphere of authority, while the widest margin of sphere that dealing with economy, dealing with the culture, with education, dealing with the justice, is part of the societal sphere rather than the state. The state is mainly like, if you could say, two ministers, the Minister of Interior and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And right now, what we call right now modern state is totally different. So we need to rethink that, and we need to open our minds about other options for ruling and for statehood. And even we need to discuss, I mean, I don't really believe in a concept which speaks about Dawla al-Islamiyya. I mean, there is Hukum Islami, but there is no actual as Islamist states. I mean, this is a total secular concept rather than Islamic concept. I will finish with this controversial statement. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Galul. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all of the seminar participants, we have come to the end of the session. All of the speakers have delivered their material and presentation on Islam, human rights and democracy, concepts and good practices in Indonesia, Pakistan, and Tunisia, with very well and crystal clear. So much knowledge, lesson learned, and hikmah we can gain from this session. So I don't need to make conclusion again, because later I can be an additional speaker of this forum. I'm sure that all of you have recorded very well the various ideas that have been conveyed by the speakers, as well as the key message from His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Adam M. Tugio. For those of you who want to listen again to the session 1 of this seminar, you can access the YouTube channel of INFID and its members, as well as the YouTube channel of the media partners. Before we close this session, I would like to invite all the speakers to have a photo group together, photo session that will be documented by the committee. Friends from INFID, maybe you can sign the set the photo session for all the speakers. Yeah, Mas Waid, okay. Please give your best style and smile. Okay, I will guide you. Oh, it's already taken. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you so much, speakers. We learned a lot from all of you. Hope that you will we will meet again in another occasion. Thank you so much again for the knowledge and all lesson learned. Therefore, on behalf of the Joint Committee INFID, Nahdlatul Ulama, and Muhammadiyah, we really appreciate the presence and participation of all of you. We thank all of the speakers for their presentation and fruitful enlightenment. We apologize for the things that are not pleasing. Don't forget to join the next session of the seminar on January 26 and 27, 2022, starting at 3:30 p.m. Indonesian time. You can visit INFID social media account to get more information about the schedule and also the speakers and the session. You can go and visit their Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter. Once again, we hope you will join us tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, because we still have 4 sessions as part of these 3 days international seminars. I'm Titi Anggraini. I'm from Muhammadiyah Indonesia. I would like to thank you all. And wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy. Thank you to all the speakers and participants.
Thank you.